Okay, I'm waiting to see if we're actually going live. I'm gonna take a few minutes to warm up, and it does look like we are in fact going live. Okay, we're showing up. We're showing up. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Happy Saturday. I'm excited to be here. I am still in Guadalajara, Mexico, and I am spending my first morning in a new Airbnb space. A new Airbnb space that does not have air conditioning and that does have ants. So it's been a very interesting morning. I've been up a couple hours just trying to get acclimated to my new space. But I will be here for 2 years, listen to me, Lord have mercy, um, 2 weeks. And when I leave here, I'll be going on to another city in Mexico. I am planning to do a video while I'm here, kind of organizing all the pictures and experiences that I've done. Maybe not all of Mexico, but a few highlights. So look forward to that if you really are following my content to learn more about sabbatical travel, and the travel piece is what excites you. My current season is a little bit more evergreen material, so it's really more career focused. But it will be really helpful to you even if you're planning a sabbatical, especially if you're planning a sabbatical. So, so if you're new here, welcome, and I'm so glad that you came in, and I hope that you will consider sticking around and becoming a subscriber. This channel is for women over 40 who are in transition, primarily career professional transitions, but it could be a transition of any sort that would make you decide to deprioritize work and take some time to yourself or invested in your family. A sabbatical can be focused on many things. So On Sabbatical with Dr. Crystal is basically a chronicle of my own experiences while on sabbatical. I started 14 months ago now. It's hard to believe it's been 14 months. And I've done things that are health related. I've done things that were family related. I've done things that were professional related. And many of the journeys that I've been on and the life lessons I've learned this year have come because I am a journaler, and I try to be a person who creates space for others when I travel and connect with other travelers. So I've learned so much from other people. And then last of all, using this platform, YouTube, to be able to share what I'm experiencing, because sometimes I forget what I've been through and what I've survived, and how, basically, the best is yet to come. That's always been one of my mottos in my tagline. So if you're not new and you're coming back, thank you so much for coming back. I really appreciate it. Either way, I would love it if you would like the video and put a comment in about where you're watching from. That would mean a lot to me. It also creates a little engagement, and any questions that you have or comments that you have about what I'm saying, I really welcome your feedback in the comment section. There will always be a pinned comment which will reference any links that I mentioned, and I'm going to mention 2 links today. And so let's get into the topic. So the reflection question that I have for today, I'm sorry, I'm trying to make sure it's not going to scroll too fast for me. Okay, there we go. Is when was the last time you felt truly free from obligation without the pressure of saying yes when you really wanted to say no? So as a professional woman, and particularly if you're a Black woman, and you're seeking ease, fun, and fulfillment, trying to balance work and your life goals can be a precarious situation. So my topic today is saying no is a love language. I'm really suggesting that saying no could be a love language, and you stick around to the end, I'm going to answer, is that true or not? So, but let's pretend for now that saying no is a powerful love language. And I am going to also offer that it's also saying no is one of our strategies to be able to give us the power that we need for liberation. So let me share with you a brief personal experience that I've had with what I'm going to call the invisible load. So the invisible load is that burden that we carry when we do not enforce our boundaries. So saying no is a specific verbal response to being able to reinforce a boundary. And that's important because if you're going to set a boundary and not reinforce it, then what was the point? So the invisible load is that burden, that psychological weight that we have when we've set a boundary, but we allow people to trample all over it. And this can happen in your personal life, in your family, as well as in your friendship group, in your romantic relationships, but it absolutely also happens at work. So within the context of a work setting and preparing yourself by creating space in your day, in your energy load, this is something that you're going to have to do is figure out what are the important things, and you're going to major only in the important things, and the things that are that you have previously been minoring in, you're going to consider dropping them altogether. So the invisible load is that energy that you feel when you're like, why did I do this? So actually, there are several examples for me, but for the sake of time, I think the thing I want to share with you is I'm a person who loves to be involved, and I love when people call and invite me to do things. And I was that way at work also. So for those who might be new to my channel, I retired just over a year ago from higher education in the state of Illinois at a university. And for a long time, I was the coordinator of the program that I taught in. And that was one of the things that I said no to and stepped down from. So if you want to hear more about that, pay attention to the end. I'm going to give you the link to a chapter that I wrote, and I talked about it in last week's episode, You Deserve a Sabbatical. So the story of how I ended up stepping down from that role and what happened is detailed in that chapter. It's one of the things that's detailed in that chapter. So the invisible load has the impact of you're doing a job because you agreed to do a job, and you are not happy with yourself because you've decided to do something that really is not in alignment with your goals, your priorities, and it's basically robbing and stealing you of the energy that you would love to be putting into the projects that really mean a lot to you. So the invisible load has a huge impact on how we live our daily lives. In professional life, as I said earlier, in my situation, I think the more maturity and responsibility you have, and I think that's true for a lot of women who show up in the workplace, particularly if you're over 40 and you've been in your career 10 years or more. This could be true if you've been in your career 2 years, but it's definitely true if you've been in your career or in your workplace or in your institution or in your industry more than 10 years. And so that's why I say I happen to be a woman well over 50, knocking on the door of the next decade. But what I would say is that since I turned 50, I became far more conscious of when I was doing things that were not in alignment with the things I wanted to be spending my time with. And I became courageous enough to actually talk about those. So the invisible load for me was the consequence that I felt of having said yes because people maybe even really needed my expertise, honestly. They needed my expertise and I wanted to make it available to them. However, that meant not doing something that I should be doing, which means longer work hours or having to run around from place to place in order to squeeze things in that were not necessarily in alignment with what I should be doing. So the consequence basically of always saying yes means that not only will you end up burnt out, but I felt resentful, and you have ultimately a lack of fulfillment. It reminds me of this quote that I would say I came up with is that boundaries are a love language because they show yourself and others that you respect yourself enough to protect your peace. So I'm going to say that again. So this is something that I've been really sitting with, especially this last week, because I feel like boundaries are a way of expressing a love language, even if they're not technically one of the official 5 love languages, but they show both you and others that you respect yourself enough to protect your peace. And when we don't respect our peace, then other people are not going to respect our peace either. So that's something I want you to really sit with, is what can you do to start saying no to things that you actually don't enjoy doing. So my story is that I actually was on a journey of saying no because I had a health challenge, and that health challenge required me to get some medical care. And in order to be eligible for that medical care, I needed to do a few things. And because of the amount of time I was going to spend doing doctor's appointments and going to physical therapy and going to, the other pieces, the cognitive and psychological pieces of that program, I had to commit myself to several things that I was carrying outside of work. So really in my late 40s, I would say the journey to saying no really began for me in that even if I loved to do something or loved the people who were asking me, I said, I would love to support you. I would love to do that. But I'll be honest with you, I'm not able to do that right now because I have some other commitments. And I hope that you will understand and respect that. And it was difficult at first, and it took me a while to learn that you got to have a criteria for when you say yes and when you say no, particularly when it comes to work. For me, there are three things that I look at, and one of them was, is it in alignment with my values? Is this something that really is part of the work that I feel that God has called me to do? As I've said before, I'm a person who, even though I'm, especially the lifestyle I have now, I don't get to be active in a local church, but I have been in the past. But having certain spiritual disciplines as an integral part of my life has been really important to me for decades. And so there are certain goals that I know I'm working toward or that I know God has assigned for me. And if something is going to be out of line with that, I may not even know it at first, but I know that it requires me to ask different questions in order for me to actually know whether or not I can do it. So just saying yes means I can't do it. So the first criteria is it in line with the values that I have for this season in my life? The second one is, how is it going to impact my energy level in the short term and the long term? So this is the other thing that really happened as I turned 50 in particular. I started to feeling, so when I turned 40, I earned my doctorate. And I'll be honest with you, I was a late bloomer. I knew that I wanted a doctorate, but it took me forever to figure out what I want to do. And so that was a season of life where I put off a lot of things that were really important to me. So because higher education was a second career, and because there were other things I knew I needed to get done in my life, because now I'm in my 40s, right? When I turned 50, I said, I really have to become the advocate for myself when it comes to protecting my energy level. So for me, one of the three criteria is, how is it going to impact my energy level? Like the weekend that I have to show up and do it, and then the weekend after when I have to do the things that I was supposed to be doing that weekend. So even like social things, looking at how it impacts your energy level, your physical, mental, emotional, availability is important. Am I going to be able to be present? Am I going to be able to be there and enjoy it? Am I going to be able to serve at the level of which I know it's important to me to show up and serve? And then lastly, is it going to impact my long-term goal, or in my case, it was a short-term goal, which was to be out of the country on a sabbatical in the summer of 2024. So for those of you that are planning a sabbatical, this is why I think this particular topic is super helpful and super important, because you want to understand what is the impact that this is going to have on people moving forward. Okay, I just realized I got something in the chat, so I'm going to go open up the chat and see what is here. Maybe some people said hello. Oh, hey there. Thank you so much. Tea Time Beauty. Thank you for coming. Cheryl, PhD. Love that you're here. So thank you so much. So if you have any ideas or thoughts on this, feel free to add those to the comments as well. So moving on, the highlight of the transformation that occurred for me is that after I began to set stronger boundaries, people stopped coming to me with things that they knew that were not things that I needed to be doing. Now that they realize that I'm going to be a person who enforces their boundaries and I'm going to be using these three criteria, they are also being taught how to treat me, being taught how to engage with me, being taught when is an appropriate time to ask for something. Because a lot of times, like for example, you'll get an email and you'll send out, especially when I was at work, there were things that I was responsible for making sure other people did correctly, for example, or they did according to the policies. And so people would ask me a question that was literally in the document that I sent them, but they had not bothered to read it carefully. So that happens also with students if you're an educator and a teacher. So another quote that I love about Brene Brown, I actually used one of her books for one of my seminar courses. She is the author of many books, and I think that's a resource that you should definitely invest in. But anyway, here's the quote. Daring to set boundaries is about having the courage to love ourselves when we risk disappointing others. And a lot of times the reason why we don't set boundaries is because these are people, now where it's hard to set boundaries and enforce boundaries is because these are people that we love and respect and we want to please and we want to work with. But sometimes when we do that, we're not going to be accomplishing our own goals, and we're going to be disrupting the things that we need to be doing at the level that we need to be doing them. And so I do think thinking about this is about the courage to love yourself and being able to trust yourself enough to know that you are worth loving, even if you say no to things that other people need you to do. They will find somebody else. There's a popular meme going on right now, I guess since the election and the 92% and the whole Black women movement about being at rest, which is get somebody else to do it. Get somebody else to do it. So you don't even have to say that because, some people like me, I would think that's kind of mean. But the reality is there are a lot of things people are asking you to do that they could get somebody else to do, and they should get somebody else to do. So some practical tips for you for setting healthy boundaries are that you need to think about what are your non-negotiables. I encourage you to really define what truly matters to you and whether or not you're willing to compromise your time, energy, or well-being for it. And that includes your sabbatical. For me, going on sabbatical meant that I needed to earn extra cash to put away in my sabbatical fund. So if I wasn't being paid to do it, if it wasn't aligned with my values, and it was going to impact my ability to do the things I needed to do that were paid extra work in order to build my sabbatical fund, I had to say no. So that's a way of thinking about what is a non-negotiable. It can be direct or indirect. And the second one is this strategy that I learned a few years ago called gentle refusal. I don't know how many of you all do this all the time, but sometimes just firmly saying no it just makes us feel guilty. So gentle refusal is, and I basically modeled it earlier and said, thank you so much for thinking of me. That is definitely something that I would love to consider. Unfortunately, I'm unable to do so at this time. So you don't have to say the word no if that is going to stress you out. You can come up with a sentence that is your gentle refusal sentence, and then you can practice that all the time. And I have some examples of that in an article that I'm working on for Substack that will be out on Monday. And if you are a subscriber and you follow my community posts, which I do post on the community tab quite frequently, you will get there's 3 scenarios and a little short script at the end of the scenarios that you can use if this is something that you're struggling with. And so besides having the gentle refusal plan, you need a yes filter. Explain how are you going to explain to people how you're evaluating your yes criteria. And again, you help people advocate for you when you help them see what your vision is and what your yes filter is. So the reality is, one of the things that I care deeply about was student engagement and voting. So when it came to work, I actually said to people, I have a vision of having our campus have full voter registration in the upcoming year. And I actually set this goal 2 years in advance. And in order for me to do that and for me to build that community to make this happen, I'm going to need to be writing grants. So I'm not taking on new projects. So if this is something that you think is going to be in alignment with that, or if you're willing to help me with the writing of grants, then definitely it's a yes. So people knew if they weren't coming to me with something to do with student voting, something to do with grant writing, I wasn't going to be able to say yes. So I'm helping people understand what the vision is so that they can support me by asking me to do the things that are in alignment in the direction that I'm going. And also, you deserve a life of ease, fun, and fulfillment. I loved doing the student voting work. I loved registering students to vote. I loved getting students to go out to the train station to talk to strangers with clipboards to get them the information to register to vote. Don't ask me why, I'm just weird that way. And we see kind of how much that type of work was needed. And obviously I'm not doing it anymore, but that's a whole nother series of videos. But what I will say is the yes filter is just as important as your gentle refusal strategy. So I want to wrap this up by talking about this saying no as a love language. There are some love languages that are really important at work, and one of them is quality time, and the other one is, I lost my notes. There are 5 love languages if you haven't heard. I think you have. And I'm not going to talk about all 5 of them, but I do want to talk about quality time. And what was the other one? Acts of service, I'm sorry. Because in our job in education and higher education, we're actually accountable for doing service. So I thought acts of service was a good one to talk about how saying no says. So I really want to close with this. So setting clear available. So if you are a person who values quality time, and I was a person who quality time was my primary love language, and at work, that means these are the ways in which I respect others and feel respected by others. So it's not romantic love, and like when it comes to family obligations, it's spending time with you, but it means that the time has a high value to you, and how you spend your time has a high value to you. And so you want to set clear availability goals. Like I'm always available for meetings after in my case, when I was at GSU, I often taught all day, Tuesdays and Thursdays. So I was only available on meetings on Monday and Wednesday afternoons. I said, I'm going to have the most availability for meetings on Monday and Wednesday after 11 a.m. If it's an online meeting or a Zoom meeting or electronic meeting, Mondays, and if it's an in-person meeting, Wednesdays. And so I would say that to people routinely so that they would understand what are the boundaries around my time. It's also okay to have do not disturb times for focused work. And then putting your own self on systems for distractions and interruptions. And also not checking email when you're supposed to be having focused time. So that's the way that we respect ourselves and having professional boundaries when it comes to someone who respects quality time. And this is going and being able to say no is going to help you in that it ensures that the time that you're dedicated to work, you're actually working, and colleagues will know that you're focusing on them and being productive with them on work tasks in that time frame. It also means that you are respecting other people's time in the same way when they say, I'm available for this. And it's not that you can't be flexible outside of your desired times to be doing focused work or collaborative work or meetings or check-ins or all that type of stuff. It just means that you have a system and that system is working well for you. So the other way that the 5 love languages I think integrates with this is this idea of saying no and maintaining a boundary. So saying no is the verbal way that we maintain boundaries, is when it comes to acts of service. Saying no to requests that are outside of your job description, your capacity, or expertise. I remember when I was a new academic, so we're talking 20 years ago, I felt like I had to say yes to anything, otherwise I was going to lose my job. And I have mentored so many new faculty who have the exact same experience. Like, I have to do this because so-and-so asked me, and they're like a superior. Everybody is more experienced to you. But if it's not outside your expertise, it's important to say, that's really interesting. I'll have to think about it. I said, and I'm not really familiar with how to do that. I'm not really familiar with that policy. I'm not really familiar with that industry. I'm not really familiar with that, scholarship. You are probably the wrong person to be doing it. So serving in the wrong area is also a way that you should be protecting your boundaries. Politely decline additional projects if you're at capacity, because serving, and if someone values acts of service and you're showing up and you're unfocused, distracted, and unprepared, you're actually not giving them an act of service. You're going backwards. You're losing them instead of and adding more work to them. So the impact on your professional relationship when you use this idea of saying no and protecting boundaries is that you can genuinely perform an act of service that is valuable and within the scope of your capacity, and that's within the scope of your expertise. Don't ask me to do certain things. Like, don't ask me to be treasurer of anything. Don't even ask me to take notes. I'm one of those people that, for years, I guess because I was a woman and I showed up and I was responsible and I looked prepared, they'd be like, would you be the note? Please don't ask me to do that. Because unless you want my chicken scratch handwriting at the end of the meeting, I'm never going to have the time to go type these up and email them to you. I actually have served as the secretary on some pretty high level committees before. And let me just say, it was a struggle. And I now know, I just didn't know better at the time. It avoids overcommitment, avoids potential burnout, and leading to poor performance, and people actually, lowering their view of you because you're performing poorly in an area that you should not have been performing. It also is a way to demonstrate professionalism, reliability, and be a service to your colleagues and organizations when you are showing up and able to be prepared, be focused, and be engaged at a high level. So do less, but do the right things and make sure you're doing them at the level that you deserve. that they deserve to be done at. And so I do want to share one other quote. It says, love yourself enough to set boundaries. Your time and energy are precious. You get to choose how you use them. And that was something that was said by Anna Taylor. And I want to also encourage you to consider a sabbatical. That's the whole purpose of this channel, to show you what a sabbatical looks like when it's in my life, and to think about how it would look for you. The last time you took a real break, not a vacation, but a pause where the purpose was to take a break, rest, restore, and get in alignment with whatever your goals are, personal or professional or both. So my call to action today is that if you're feeling stuck, burned out, or just ready for more, I encourage you to consider my chapter 7, You Deserve a Sabbatical, that is in the book, Girl, Your Brand is a Big Deal. It's a book that's an anthology of success and life lessons from women entrepreneurs. Some of them are related to starting your own business or keeping your business alive or closing your business in some cases. But they're all about life lessons from successful women. And I have really enjoyed being in community with these successful entrepreneurs. And I think my chapter 7 would be really helpful to you. It's available on Kindle at Amazon, and the link will be in the pinned comment. Let me see. Actually, I think I have it here. Last week, I actually created a link. So I don't know if you can click on it in the stream, but that's the link that will be available later. And the chapter is called You Deserve a Sabbatical. And while I'm at the end here, this is probably also a good time to say to you to please like the video and leave a comment. Let me know what you thought about what I said today, and where are some areas where you need to really push forward and say no in your life. I'm also working on a toolkit for called, I think it's going to be called Audacity and Bloom, but it's going to have these strategies and checklists that are associated, and saying no is one of the steps of the framework. The power of saying no basically is one of the steps. And I want to close by saying, so saying no is actually not a love language, but it is the power and the steam that makes the other love languages real and authentic, because you're showing up in a way that doesn't discredit or diminish who you are and what your needs are. So it is basically a tool to really strengthen and lift up the other love languages. It is not itself a love language. But the power of saying no for yourself and for your future is unmatched. And I really hope that something I've said today has really inspired you. And if you're watching the replay, please remember to come back and leave a comment and check out the Amazon link of our Kindle copy of the book, Girl, Your Brand's a Big Deal. Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Let me check the comments. Just realized I have more comments. It starts with us. Cheryl said, I guess I did the whole sabbatical thing incorrectly. I went in and used it to test drive a new job. Yeah. I've heard a lot of people say that they've done that. They basically took a second job while they were on sabbatical. Yeah, I mean, so in last week's video, if you haven't seen it, I talk about what sabbatical is and the roots, the foundation of sabbatical being the idea of a Sabbath and a rest, and how every 7 years, not only the land deserves to rest, but the people need to rest. And so just like Sunday is the 7th day of the week, we're supposed to be resting and dedicating that to the things we believe in, maybe, worshiping, God, or whatever is going to be the spirit that nurtures you, whatever you're doing for your spiritual health and development. So I'm glad that it worked out for you, Cheryl, and I really appreciate your comment about it. And it's really interesting. I'd love to hear more about your dissertation study. We should talk because I'm looking for people to interview who've been on, to do an episode of people who've been on sabbatical. Now that I'm kind of in one space for 2 weeks, I'm going to be trying to figure out what that looks like, so that when I invite people, I know what I am talking about, what I sound like. So thank you again so much for watching. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye. Have a great weekend.